All right, good day, hi, and welcome. Okay, we're back at it again. I'm gonna get everybody's dander up. Gonna be doing that. So I've put out a couple of videos now, some long ones. I got to be careful what I put out and stuff like that. But like, as we head towards the so-called Black Christmas, for me, it might be a freaking devastating Christmas if I end up in prison. I shouldn't even be joking about that. The way Murphy's Law works. I've already explained it in the other video. I've done nothing wrong. It's just I sold a trailer 2 years ago, and it got found in Gatineau, and the police came and told me about it, and they asked me to call an investigator on Wednesday, an investigator, and I got called him on Wednesday because he's not going to be there till Wednesday, and there's a file. So it's like, okay, that's all I can really tell you about it that I know from their angle. They were not really telling me much. But yeah. Anyway, so I don't know if I'm being investigated or not. So I've explained it in a few videos, so I won't go over it too much. But if it's that kind of a Black Christmas for me, then yeah, it's going to be really bad. So I don't know, guys. I have no idea. Like if that's how I'm going to be starting 2020, ending 2025, and starting 2026, that's not going to be good. That's not going to be a good year at all. But we'll see what happens. You know, it is what it is. Is what it is. But anyway, yeah. So I know a lot of people agree with some stuff I say. Some people don't agree with some stuff I say. But regardless of what side of the aisle you are on, okay, if you're a full-blown Trump supporter, that's fine. I don't care. But you need to prepare for the chaos that's coming, whether you believe he's in on it or not. I'm kind of in the camp that he's in on it. There are no good guys. Think of all our world leaders more like mob bosses fighting. No, they don't care about us. They care about their portfolios. They care about their agendas. Yes, they are fighting each other, you know, here, there, and everywhere. But that's just mob bosses fighting. It really has nothing to do with us. They don't care about us. And because they don't care about us, they've made decisions, you know, even just the ones that are not trying to control the world, but just these crazy partisans that I just have to stick it to the other guy, regardless of whose lives it destroys, right? And it's the little people like us that, you know, we are victims of government policy, right? Almost all the time. So if the policies are bad, you know, we suffer, right? It doesn't matter if you're on the left or on the right. The problem is people love their guy bringing in the policies that hurt the other guy, right? But at the end of the day, it always just ends up hurting. You know, it doesn't hurt them. Like it doesn't hurt them. It hurts us, right? But no, we're seeing some crazy things going on very, very quickly, moving in directions I really, really don't like. And again, things don't happen right away. What you get is a weird thing. For example, a law will pass, and when that law passes, somebody will say, okay, they're doing this, and just blow it right out of proportion, hyperbolics, Alex Jones style, right? Meanwhile, it is an issue, and it is bad, and whatever, we should be concerned. But because they overhype the what it is, when it doesn't go that awry, the rest of the normies look at it, or most people say, oh, it's just a nothing burger. It's just that person crying wolf again. You know what I mean? Meanwhile, the next time another law, it takes away a little more, takes away a little more of your freedom, a little more of your freedom, etc., right? And that is kind of the way these things work, kind of incrementally. Like Agenda 21 is kind of like burning the candle at both ends. You have a top-down implementation, but a ground-up implementation, so that you get your stranglehold is in the middle. Now, the thing is that the numbers I'm looking at, okay, is like, for example, Canada, yes, everybody's focusing on the 1,000 steelworker jobs that have gotten lost. And that's bad. But they don't talk about the 56,000 jobs that we just gained, okay? And that's sort of good. Why do I say sort of? Well, because it depends who's getting these jobs. Is this just more temporary foreign workers bouncing the ball down the road with the Canadian economy, as I said, where the Canadian economy is doing good, GDP numbers go up, and then a whole bunch of illegals come in, or foreign workers or whatever, and then you got like 60,000 or 80,000 people that just came in a week, and those people basically drop the GDP because now you got all these people on welfare, and then they go and work in these greedy factories that just want to undercut everybody's labor, right? And then the GDP numbers go back up again. Well, the Americans have ran out of runway on that one, where they now have way more people than they do jobs. So the only thing they can do is fire, legitimate American workers to give these jobs to basically underpay basically a slave class, right? We're going to get these foreign workers that will pay, we can pay them 15-20% less. Because capitalism, right? Capitalism does not protect people. It's not designed to protect people. Socialism is irresponsible, but because it's designed to protect people, but at what cost, right? Like I've always said, you can have any social program you want. How are you going to pay for it? Oh, we want basic universal income. Great, give me $10,000 a month, $2,000 to $10,000 a month. I'd be happy with that. Sure, great. Now, how are you going to pay for it? Nobody ever answers that. Every time you talk to somebody about basic universal income, oh, we're just going to tax the rich. Exactly how are you going to tax the rich? Exactly how are you going to pay for these programs? And there are ways to do it, but you have to have a government that actually cares about the people, not the, too big to fails and all that, right? And we don't have that. We don't have a government that's serving its people anywhere in the world right now. And they're all in on it, you know what I mean? And the problem is that you're starting to see the chokehold of this. So yes, the Canadian economy is doing slightly better than the American economy in a lot of ways. We have lower interest rates. That's not a good thing. It's good for lending, but it's bad for too big to fail, because when these too big to fails, can't pay back, we have to bail them out, right? And it all comes back to this, lower lending. We need interest rates at about 15 to 19 to 25%. You say, well, that would kill the banking industry overnight. Yeah, it would. But if we worked our way back to that, and you had a sovereign nation, you could say, well, yes, but anybody that wants to do business in our country, such as Donald Trump saying, oh, well, we want American banks to be able to do business here. Well, they can. They can. What he's talking about is that he wants to be able to undercut our interest rates, is what he's talking about, which would put our domestic banks out of business. That's what Trump is talking. That's what Trump's deal is for Canada, is to put us out of business, destroy our economy, take us over. This is his words. And now we're at the point where it's like, okay, more threats are coming in, not just to Canada, but again, the Trump administration is firing off in all directions. They don't know what to do. So everybody's an enemy, everybody. So if they're going to isolate, they need to isolate, whatever. But in order to do that, they need to do it in such a manner that you don't destroy the American people in the process with poverty. You can't do that until you start getting rid of 40 million illegals that are in your country, and making sure that anybody that's in your country is going to have a job. Now, one of the things that I'm looking at, and again, because the economic data for the last 2 or 3 months, we don't know from the States because everything's been shut down, but it is looking like my hunch on the auto industry is correct, that it's really devastating. So basically, the only way the auto industry is going to stay afloat is bailouts at this point. Look, the Agenda 2030 thing and the Sustainable Development Goals, one of them was to make sure nobody was going to be driving vehicles by 2025. Well, we're in 2025. How do you do that? Well, have a trade war and take out your fucking own industries. There you go. Donald Trump's, again, whether he was in on it or not, I think he is. But so he's no better than Joe Biden. Again, I don't like any of these people. It's not what they say, it's what they do. So you will not be driving your Ford F-150, the most popular pickup truck on the planet, because you won't be able to get parts for it. It's like I was telling my buddy Paul yesterday about, trying to find a car, and I was talking to Patches, and he was like, yeah, you didn't find a truck yet or nothing? I said, he goes, well, he says, if you stop sending them for fucking scrap, maybe you'll have a truck. I said, yeah, but I said, the problem I have is like, it's like I'll find something in my price range and it's like, oh, $3,000. Oh, this looks like a nice SUV or a truck or whatever. Oh, vehicle runs, needs head gasket, needs, and it's just like you can't get the part or you can't get somebody to work on it, right? That's how they're taking away the auto industry, right? Is basically just starve you from parts. They started this in 2020 because that was the plan to get everybody out of automotive in by 2025, right? So when they say, it's kind of like when Rahm Emanuel came out with Die with Dignity by the UN's Die with Dignity by 75. Oh, they bring it out as a trial balloon just to see how the audience is going to react to it, whatever. And now we got Die with Dignity, doctor-assisted suicide here in Canada, right? And now it's going to the UK. I guess the Americans are next because, oh, well, our medical system will save so much money. Now, mind you, people like Bill Gates and that were saying, well, why keep these people alive? Why not just, you had a good life, you're allowed to live this long and that's it. Now, that doesn't pertain to those people. Those people get life extension technology, the opposite, right? Because they're important, you're not. But the idea is that they are trying to kill the medical system in all our countries. In the States, what they're doing is just bankrupting people so they can, and making it so that they can't afford, like some people are paying like $2,700 a month for health coverage. How? You'd have to make 10 grand a month just to pay your bills. It's in, so 40% of Americans can't get health care, whatever. But if you had a single payer system, oh, that's socialism. That's socialism. You can have a single payer system and it can work better. The Canadian medical system, with all of its problems, is still better than the American one. I'm not saying the doctors are better or worse. They're about the same. It's Western doctors and Western doctors. What it is that Canada has like a 23% at last count of its extra strain from all these immigrants coming in. 23% extra strain in a short amount of time on our healthcare system in the past 10 years. And it's like, well, how come we can't ever seem to have enough doctors or nurses or whatever, or surgeons or whatever, and why are people dying waiting for treatment, on a single payer system, which is not free, but I mean, you don't pay for your healthcare out of pocket, you pay it indirectly through taxes. And Canadians right now are about $1,000 cheaper on the single payer system, but everybody's covered for more things. But more things are becoming privatized. And you got these doctors out there saying, we need a privatized system, blah, 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 because it'll be so much cheaper and better. Well, Obamacare says you're wrong. No, Trump didn't fix the healthcare system at all. He doesn't care about it. Why? When people die, well, then you don't have to care about them, right? So, there's no, they want people on pharmaceuticals. They don't want to fix you, right? So Trump cares about big pharma, like Pfizer, stuff like that. That's what he cares about. He doesn't care about making sure you can get cheaper health coverage and so he doesn't care about that at all. He knows how to pander, but he doesn't care. Joe Biden didn't care. Obama didn't care. Obama did care. Obama cared about Obamacare a lot because he knew his buddies were going to make a killing on it, right? And they did, literally. Here, have your extremely, extraordinarily expensive healthcare coverage, right? But we're going to deny get these insurance companies just keep denying claims or charging you more. I mean, it's just a nightmare for the people in the States. But it's a nightmare. Like, it's the same in the UK, it's the same up here in Canada. Like, again, if you got rid of all the illegals out of your country and started doing remigration, that would take care of a lot of that problem. You wouldn't have to, why are we always running out of doctors? Because thousands of people are coming in every week that need medical assistance from the third world. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. So that system's going to break. That system, well, it's going to break if it's not reformed. And I'm not a person that's anti-reform, but I understand, like, how do you take a corrupt or an inefficient system and make it efficient? Now, the free market capitalist will always just say, or libertarianism and stuff like that, will always say, well, we just have to make it free market so it becomes competitive. But what you find out, look, medical is like farming. There's very little profit to be made in there unless you go over the top with the profits, right? And with food, for example, with the farmers, they can only charge you so much, or nobody will be able to afford to eat. We're already going there, right? With the healthcare, it's the same thing. Like some of the stuff, for example, many Americans come up to Canada to buy insulin. Now, when Trump puts a kibosh to that, that's going to kill millions of diabetics in the States. If you can't get your insulin, you die. To spend $700 a month on insulin, most people can't afford that. You know what I mean? And then you're going to tell me how free market capitalism is fixing the problem. You know what I mean? And then Trump has the nerve to say, well, we're subsidizing our stuff up here where people are paying like, $140 a month, $70 to $140 a month as diabetics, right? On their insulin shots. Which to me is still way too much. I'd rather subsidize insulin shots for people than, have illegals sitting in motels and stuff like that, and all these immigrants that are coming in just going on welfare, which is about 85% of the immigrants that come in. This is 2015 numbers. God knows what it's up now, but in Canada, and I can imagine this follows suit everywhere, 85% of immigrants that come in do not work for the first 3 years. And maybe at the end of that, 45% will. Now, that said, of this 45%, how many of them are underemployed because of temporary foreign worker status, right? So you have to look at that, right? Now, other things that are happening is Canadians are going to be hammered at the border a little bit more. I'm not sure what the new restrictions are, but apparently if you want to go to the States, you're going to have to get a visa rather than just have a passport. So I'm not sure all the details. This is coming out of the Trump administration. Again, you could see severing the ties between Canada and the United States. Trump needs to hurt Canada as much as he can to get us to collapse. Problem is Carney's aware of this. And this is not a reigning endorsement for Carney. I know people take it that way. I don't like the man either. But he's outplaying Trump in a lot of ways. That said, we're in the everything crisis up here that they have down there and around the world. The Western world has been destroyed by the same intellectuals, the same world leaders are all in on it. They're all hooked to the same banking system. It all comes back to that. They're all on the same immigration, UN Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 stuff, replacement migration, cheap labor. It doesn't matter if your politician is bringing people in to outvote the old stock population, or if they're doing it to get cheap labor. The Conservatives bring in cheap labor. The Liberals bring in voters, right? The end result is the same. Now, something that I've said years ago, okay, when Trudeau got into power up here, I said that was it for the end of the country. We were going to become post-national. We would no longer be a country other than Canada, would be Canada in name only. The United States seems to be following suit. They've caught up to us and now have passed us. They are United States in name only. The Constitution is a shit rag that's not even worth the bullet. It's only worth the bullets that are willing to protect it. Nobody's willing to protect it. I'm willing to protect it. No, nobody's willing to protect it. The administration is not protecting the constitutions. It's like what Henry Kissinger said. Illegal they do right away. Unconstitutional it takes a little longer. Well, we're there. They've got that done. They're doing that now. So with the hate speech laws kind of going everywhere, you got all these Americans that are like, oh, look at how bad Britain is and Australia and Canada with the hate speech and blah, blah, blah. Now they're going after religious rights again in Canada, blah, blah, blah. Bill C-9. I don't know what's all in Bill C-9, but I can imagine, again, it's all incremental stuff, right? And I'm like, yes, but you're just late to the ball. You know what I mean? We're all in the same problem. We all have the everything fentanyl crisis in all the Western world, and the liberation of drugs. Look what's happened to our depression rates from the legalization of marijuana and the suicide rates. They've been, again, causation and correlation might not be direct, but you can look at the graph. When they legalized marijuana in Canada, the suicide and depression just start going up and up and up and up. Now there are other factors, but we know scientifically that stuff is a depressant. It's not good for brain development. Weed is bad for you. I understand people with glaucoma might disagree, but 99% of the people doing weed are not doing it for glaucoma or cancer or whatever. They're doing it to get buzzed, get high, because they can't deal with the daily shit, right? And that is not helping them out at all. If you don't need it, don't take it. You know what I mean? Just because it's natural doesn't mean it's good for you. And most of it is not natural. Most of it is hybrid, laced with all kinds of stuff, such as fentanyl, whatever. It's not good. And the fact that it comes back to what Noam Harari, however you say his name, said, that they don't need all these humans, these useless eaters. We'll just have everybody whacked out on drugs and video games and porn. You know, so you can understand, like, our system cares about a transhumanist future, the Agenda 21, Agenda 2030 stuff, Internet of Things and all that, CBDCs, all those things. They don't care about people. And this is very, very apparent, to the point where Trump may have basically, by basically putting so many input costs on the farmers, may have just basically created a massive food shortage. I'm still saying, watch out what happens by Christmas for the food prices. They are going up in the States, but watch happens with food shortages by about February, when the food starts to run out in the United States. So at best, you just pay extremely high food prices, but we could be looking at a Holodomor light, where people start starving to death, which will obviously have all kinds of food riots. You're going to see that when you see food riots in the United States. If you haven't realized how dangerous the world is by then, and like at that point, we've already lost. The thing is we have to. The only way out is through, right? We have to survive this madness until it either burns itself out, which is probably going to take 80 to 100 years, and you have to learn how to live with. Again, this is why we're going to see such a rise in tribalism. White people are starting to, come to a conclusion that, hey, no, we're slated for destruction. We are the world's minority. And it's very, very clear that our world leaders, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, or any Obama, whatever, they attack you in different ways. It's just, with Trump, he doesn't care about race or anything like that. I do believe he doesn't give a shit about anybody, other than his close circles, right? And he wasn't supposed to be like that. He was supposed to be the one that cared about it. But he's so good at speaking. Trump is a phenomenal speaker. He can sell snake oil to a snake oil salesman. So could Barack Obama. These men, they are intelligent. Like, Obama is not an idiot. Obama is probably one of the sneakiest fuckers I've ever seen. Carney is a sneaky guy, similar to Obama in a lot of ways, but he's a numbers guy, right? So he'll sell you the snake oil, but he's going to sell you snake oil he's going to make money off of. So sometimes you get an accidental win. So Canada is in a weird position, especially, like, for example, the F-35. That keeps coming up, right? Because there's so much, it's like, okay, Canadian pilots are saying there's no other airplane that would be good for Canada other than the F-35. But when you look at it on paper, it's really not a great airplane. It's not maybe a handful of them are fine, but you can't afford to run them. The Americans can shut them off, and basically they have the kill switch, right? Maybe it's just for the radar, but maybe they can actually shut the actual airplane off in flight. Which, the technology's there. Like, they can do a kill switch, and the airplane can just completely shut down, whatever. That's not far fetched. This is a problem that, ever since Trump said that, we can shut those off in flight, I think they're mainly talking about the data links from Raytheon and using, like, the satellites, which would render the airplane pretty much useless if it can't receive any data, right? So maybe the airplane can stay flying, but it can't fight, can't see, it's blind, it has no radar, that kind of stuff. And a lot of people they're opting out of the F-35 program. Is like, whoa, this thing's it's tainted, right? And this is hurting jobs in the States. Now, on top of that, the Americans are threatening to, if we don't buy the F-35s, they're going to basically take NORAD away from us, which is the dumbest thing ever. So you can see Carney's already trying to get out ahead of this by creating the Nordic Alliance, right? That's what he's doing. Because you have to understand, it's the same thing. Like, you can't cut NORAD. Russia would love that, number one, without, like, damaging the United States, right? So this is, like I say, the Canada is the tumor to the American tumor, right? You have two tumors that are grafted onto each other, so intertwined that you can't kill one without killing the other. And there's still Americans that believe that, well, we only do 2% GDP of trade with Canada. Canada is a nothing burger. They can't stand on their own 2 feet. They're not even really a real country. Blah, blah. There are Americans that believe this. There's very few, but there are some, right? Unfortunately, the few that do believe this are in the administration. The other 80% of Americans are like, they're not anti-Canada at all. And it's pretty mutual across. Yes, there's a little bit more resentment on the Canadian side because of the betrayal of Trump, is what he's done to, like Canadians, like constantly, and he wants that. He's doing that on purpose, right? He's damaging our relations on purpose. Why? Because it's a lot easier to go to war with people and steal their resources when they don't like each other. But people, they still can't see it. So canceling NORAD, doesn't sound like anything like a nothing burger until it happens. We'll have to wait and see. But, before you cancel NORAD, yes, you make Canadians have to get a visa. You know what I mean? Just to visit. The Trump administration is clearly trying to drive away Canadian business. They don't want Canadians to be their number one tourist anymore. They want us. They want us out of there, even if it costs thousands and thousands of jobs. The Americans just lost another 35,000 jobs just in hospitality and stuff. We gained 56,000. They lost 35,000. But people will say, well, yeah, but Carney lost 1,000 jobs in the metals, the metal sectors. Yes, which he's pivoting those deals away from the States. And right now, the amount of deals that are in the works under Carney, like if there's anybody making 90 deals in 90 days, it's Carney, not Trump. Because people are trying to pivot away from the instability of the United States. You might not want to accept that, but that's what's happening. Now, is it flawless? Absolutely not. We're in extremely chaotic times. Not everything's going to go according to plan. But so far, the business that is, like, for example, the corn farmers that just lost a whole bunch of export deals to us Canadians because the countries that they were almost a sure bet to be able to sell to say, no, we're going with Canada. Once that deal's signed and made, that's it. Like, you guys ain't getting that business back, right? You're losing business to us. I'm not finding it the other way around as much. Spain is just... Spain is kind of weird. After 2008 and particularly 2020, Spain is taking a pivot. Like Greece, Spain, and Italy were kind of the source of the 2008 collapse as the collapse got diverted to Europe, right? But Spain in 2020 said they were never going to be vulnerable like that again, so they're basically redoing their economy. We'll have to wait and see what Argentina does, but Spain and Canada are now like these emerging powers. It's strange. Like, we could see Spain maybe in 20 or 30 years hit the status of what Germany was here comes the Conquistadora. Cannot speak today. Here comes Cortez. We'll just say, here comes Cortez, right? 2.0. But, they're in the defense industry, they're in the tech industry, and they're working with Canada. Deals that they were going to make with the States, they're now making with us, right? So Canada and Spain, again, Canada and South Korea, Canada and the Nordic countries, like these deals, they're going to take 4 or 5 years before we really see the fruits of the labors of them. But the thing is every deal that pivots from the United States is taking away jobs in the United States. And it's not necessarily taking away jobs in Canada. The only question for us is, can we get full employment and outrun the collapse of the United States? Which my hunch says no, we're gonna get hammered really bad. But when we do, the question is, like, when you look at the threats that the U.S. administration is making towards Canada, they're subtle right now. But you can understand that they're talking about scrapping military partnerships, exactly what I said they were going to do a little while back. But I said, look, when Trump started talking about the 51st state thing, I said, look, we are going to war. Canada and the United States is going to war. I'm very serious about this. No, I don't want to see this. No, the United States is not going to win. We're going to take heavy losses here, but it's going to make the Ukraine look like a field day. Like it's going to make it look like a picnic, just because of the brutality of just the multitude of parties involved. Just the Civil War angle of it amongst the Americans themselves is probably going to kill a few million people. The people that don't want to go to war with Canada, and they're not necessarily going to be siding with Canada, but they're going to try to overthrow the U.S. government. Why? Because the U.S. government is so corrupt at this point. You know, I mean, the CIA, the FBI, the military, they're all anti-American, right? It's not what they say, it's what they do, right? They're doing everything. And it's the same everywhere. I mean, it's the same here, it's the same there. But the thing is when I call it out like that, everybody's, oh, Reg, you're crazy, you're crazy. But then you guys, almost everything always plays out exactly how I say. So yes, we're now, you know, again, we use Gerald Celente's golden rule here: currency war, trade war, shooting war. So we're still in trade war, right? The trade war is really coming at us from the American side. They're the ones that accelerate. It's the Trump administration doing this, not us. We retaliate, and then they're, oh, well, you're not supposed to retaliate. How dare you? We're going to hit you with this, 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 and this. So it's an escalation, right? But what Trump is trying to do, what it seems what he's trying to do, is to collapse the Canadian military through getting rid of procurements. And the only way he can do that is if he cancels the F-35 and everything else. And then if he cancels NORAD, the idea there will be to disrupt basically the ability for us to detect excursions in the north. Problem is the Canadian system is intertwined heavily with the American system. Like where Trump lies to is like, oh, well, we're protecting the Canadian military. The Canadian military has lots of problems. There's no doubt about that. Recruitment is up a little bit, but other than that, you know, it's up, it's down. It's mainly down overall trend, right? But that's more due to woke than anything. But the thing is that the Canadian radars and the Canadian, surveillance angle is not all U.S. So a lot of it is ours. A lot of it's U.S., but they're joint ventures, right? So you can't, you know, like Trump wants to be able to flick a switch and turn Canada off. He wants to kill us. He wants us dead and gone so that we could just take over the United States. The United States could just take over Canada. And that's not hyperbolic. That's the way the man is thinking. He really sees it as like a real estate deal. Canada is an arbitrary, not a real country. We're paying for their military. They're not. Again, if you track every Canadian dollar spent on the military, 70 to 80% of it goes to the United States, but somehow we're screwing you over, right? But it's worse than that, because what he's trying to do is basically destroy our military so we can't see you guys coming when you invade, right? Now, it's still a couple of years out because you can't just do an invasion overnight. Problem is Carney, who's said his plain language, look, he wants to take us over. like he's in disbelief of it. I'm not telling you Carney's telling you this because he's a good guy. He's telling you this because he's kind of fucking baffled by it. Like, he's like, why is our number one ally suddenly got this hatred for us and wants to destroy our economy economically first, then, you know, we're going to roll tanks next. So the thing is how do you get out ahead of that? Well, there's simple. And what to watch out for is suddenly there's like a whole bunch of countries training in Canada. Germany, France, the Nordics, whatever, will be training like outside of NATO. They'll be here. They'll have a presence here. You're already seeing it lightly where you're seeing like I think Marvin's out there. I hear a lot of noise. I gotta go see Marvin's out there. Hope he's not in here. But you're seeing like all this like rhetoric going back and forth, militarily stuff. I don't see him. He was definitely in a peanut butter jar again. He's probably up on a little ledge. Can't see him through the window. But anyway, So yeah, so it's we'll have to watch to see what he's going to try to do. Where I think the invasion is going to start, or what it's going to start over, is around the Great Lakes, because Trump wants to basically capture the Great Lakes and get rid of the Great Lake, so big deal there. So that protecting the Great Lakes, Trump doesn't want to protect them; he wants to exploit them, right? That's his own words. It's his own words. So when Trump comes out and says, "Look, Canada might be a hostile nation to us, therefore we might be severing some ties." This is what's the threat out there right now. So NORAD's under threat over the F-35s, and pivoting to the Gripen. Look, the Swedes are swapping out engines out of their Gripens from General Electric engines to Rolls-Royce engines, because they know the Americans can veto those engines going into sales for the Swedes. So the Swedes are like, well, America's not really picking on us yet, but we better get a new deal with Rolls-Royce so that our clients can have those jets serviced, right? And it's not as easy as just buying one jet over the other. Like the F-35, everybody's like, okay, well, the F-35 is the best airplane ever. Yes, but there's a lot of things people don't consider. This is what's not included in the purchase of the F-35s, hence why Carney's looking at it, such as you have to build a whole bunch of new infrastructure to maintain these airplanes. The CF-18 hangars are probably not going to be, they're going to have to be revamped or something to be able to take care of these airplanes. They need a whole bunch of special tooling. You have to be able to recoat the airplanes after every couple of flights. So it's kind of like, like there was a talks of Canada servicing some of the F-35s. Now, there's another problem with the F-35 that the Americans have, is we build a lot of parts for the F-35 here. I wasn't aware of this up until a couple of weeks ago. So we're in that program. We've been in that program since day one, and I think we've made about $400 million off of this program. But the problem is how much have we spent on it, especially getting sued for canceling it under Trudeau and stuff like that. So there's a lot of problems there. The Gripen would be easier to transition to, but yes, you're talking all new tooling, all new setup for that. But if we go with the Gripen, and I think we have to anyway, the Gripen can do almost everything the F-35 can. It's just not stealthy. The F-35 might be a little bit more fancy in some areas, but at the end of the day, if you had to attack a contested airspace, the slight advantages that you have with the F-35, and they are just that. It's like if you're going after a really competent SAM site, you can get shot down by anything. You know what I mean? The soft Gripens are not going to, like their long range weapon. It really comes down to how far away can you shoot at this thing from. So if the SAM site has a 500-kilometer range, there's no airplane, and you got a good ground crew in that thing. No one's getting near it. It's as simple as that. No one's getting near it without getting shot down, including the F-35. So the thing is that if the F-35, like right now, look, the Americans are starting to lose weapons deals amongst other countries as well, and they need to blame somebody other than themselves. Now, getting back to the automotive, I know to jump topics. As we're seeing the escalation up there, I think one of the reasons for the government shutdown wasn't just about the budget or whatever. I think a lot of it is just that we can't let them see this data. It's that bad. And one of the data that I've been waiting to hear, because we don't have accurate data on this, is Ford, GM, Chrysler, GMC, Chevrolet, how bad their losses have been the past couple of months with all these tariffs and everything. And like, are people, boycotting, like, for example, people that would have bought an F-150 might have went out and bought a Toyota Tundra or something instead. You know what I mean? Like, how much of that boycott is there, and just how much just people aren't buying because they can't afford it because their F-150 is now, $25,000 more, you know what I mean? Or $50,000 or whatever it's at. We don't know, because it takes a while for these tariffs to really, really hit you, right? It takes about a year, and we're coming up on that. So the losses could be much, much greater than we anticipate. And then, of course, like the Stellantis thing. Okay, yeah, we gave a whole bunch of money to Stellantis in investment, and now they've taken the money and run to the States with it, and betraying the deal. And they're saying, well, the deal wasn't clear. So Canada, yeah, we got screwed there. So Stellantis is never coming back, probably ever going to be coming back to Canada, right? So stuff like that. But as I said, like something that Canada could do is strike up a deal with Germany for now. Say, okay, bring those BMWs over here. We'll make a full line of vehicles, and we'll call them the CMW, and then we'll wean ourselves off of that. And it looks like that's now becoming a thing where BMWs, one of the biggest exporters of vehicles in the world, is now looking to really ramp up in Canada. So we could be going from an American automotive industry to like a more European based or an Asian based one, right? But what we really need is a 100% authentic Canadian one. But as our auto sectors decouple over, say, the next decade or so, this is going to be very chaotic. So, like, our economy is going to have to make it up in other areas, and that seems where Carney's going. So, for every, like, it's wins versus losses. For Trump, I haven't seen too many wins, and it just is what it is. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that because he's supposed to be the good guy. Well, you're right. He was supposed to be the good guy. But you're not getting the 90 deals in 90 days. Nobody wants to make a deal with Trump because it's like, what's the point? Like the guy's going to move the goalpost 5 minutes after. And the thing is that the way people are around the world are receiving this, like, like the American hostility is like, okay, well, Trump's out there saying, oh, we're the victims, we're the victims, we're the victims, but they're bashing everybody over the head with they're not going after trade disputes at this point. Like, if you think these tariffs are about unfair trade disputes at this point, I got a bridge to sell you. It's about something else completely. It's a way to keep the government basically functioning by raising taxes massively. And that's the only way to do it. Is just say, well, we have to, punish you with a tariff because the tariff is basically a tax. You have all these corporations out there saying, no, when Trump says the corporations aren't going to pay the tariffs. Well, yes, they are. you know what I mean? Everybody's paying the tariff. It's a tax. You get hit by it one way or another. And it's devastating around the world. So this idea that every deal that was ever made with the United States is screwing them over, that's what he is telling you to believe, right? And there's still people that believe it, because like there's some people like, no matter what Trump does, he can do no wrong. There's people like that with Carney. No, Carney's not. Carney is just outplaying Trump for his guys, his investor class, and his portfolio, not because he cares about Canadian people. Don't ever consider that like that. Carney cares about Canadian people, but we might get some accidental wins, and we have been getting a lot of accidental wins. At first, you could say they're accidental wins, but if you follow what the man is doing, even like the bad stuff, like the gun buybacks, these liberal anti-Christian laws coming in, stuff like that. Okay, the culture war stuff, yeah, it's a complete shit show. I don't need to waste my time on that because you guys already know what's there. And you can go bash Carney all you want on that. But where it's going to count is not Carney, but the guy that takes over from Carney. When Carney hands over the keys to the next guy, eventually, maybe Carney's the prime minister for the next 20 years. Maybe he doesn't make out his term and we're at an early election next year or the year after. I think he's going to make out his term. I don't know if he's going to win the next one. But I think just because of the chaos that we're going to be in, up to and including being shot at by the Americans, it's going to probably be a border skirmish around the Great Lakes. This is what I'm predicting. It could be somewhere else, but this is the one that makes the most. This is the indicator I'm finding the most. And it will be Americans opening fire on Canadians or vice versa, military to military. It'll be a small skirmish, and that will kick off the beginnings of the civil wars in the United States, a massive patriotic rally in Canada, and there will be no more anti-gunners in Canada. Like that's not going to exist anymore. Anybody that they're just going to get punched in the head if they say something stupid. It's like, no, we're about to be invaded by the fucking Americans who have done like 48 confirmed regime changes. And Trump is not going for regime change here. That's the thing. He's not saying, well, I got to get Carney out. No, he got Carney in there. He done everything to interfere with our elections by endorsing Pierre Poilievre to make sure people would vote against him. He knew that that's how the populace would react here. So he did that on purpose. I guess he figured Carney was just going to roll over. And the conspiracy theorists were saying that no, Carney was just going to put Canada into receivership because we're so broke. And we are broke, but then if you judge them by the budget, it's like the budget has a potential, if it follows suit, if they make good on it. I mean, a lot of chaos can happen. But if Carney does the budgets the way he says in the next 4 years, he could possibly balance parts of the budget that would make life a lot easier for Canadians, including bringing up, again, this might be wishful thinking, but at the rate he's staying at, whether he's the next prime minister or somebody else is, if they follow suit, we have a balanced budget within 10 years, which the first country to a balanced budget gets to choose its destiny. The United States has no destiny because, other than doom, because of $38 trillion, right? The best way to get rid of that would be a war. Like Gerald Celente says, when all else fails, they take you to war. The thing is most Americans are not going to want to go to war with Canadians. Maybe 2%. The other 18% that were okay with the 51st state were like, these were more libertarian people that were like, if they want to, we'd be happy to have them, but they would have to decide to join us. Like we're not going to take them by force. That absolutely no. So Americans would be torn up on this one to a point where you're going to see civil war in the States. Radical left versus radical right. Anyway, you're already seeing it. That's, Charlie Kirk kind of kicks this off officially, right? That's, that's the left firing the first real Bolshevik shots, right? And the system wants us fighting anyway. That's why Nick Fuentes is getting such promotion now, is just so you can get him to rally the troops on that side, right? So that, like Henry Kissinger would always say, hope he's burning in hell, but if they're fighting each other, they're not fighting us, right? Divide and conquer, Henry Kissinger's MSSN 200, playing out right in the United States as we see. But Trump wants Canada. He wants our resources. He doesn't want us. He wants our resources. This is why, like I say, the attack on Venezuela will have multi-prongs. One of the things is to steal that oil, so you can basically bankrupt Alberta and all the western provinces with the oil, and then get the potash. If you can get the oil and potash and the minerals from Venezuela through regime change, you won't need Canada as much, and then you can start cutting shit off, right? But even at that, that's still a 10, 15-year transition to make. And you have to kill how many Venezuelans to do this? Which, yes, the U.S. military, they're not going to stand up for freedom and liberty and stuff. No, they will just go and kill. Look, if they're going to gunboat people in speedboats in the water and then turn back after they sink the boat and go and shoot the people in the water, that's what American soldiers are going to do. That's what the U.S. Navy has just done. And they said, well, I was ordered to do it, just following orders. That's literally what the captain said. It's not my fault, not my problem. I was just ordered to go back. Trump said, well, I ordered them to get the speedboat, but not kill the guys in the water. So, Hagstaff, you're the guy that's going to go down for it. As crimes against humanity. Okay, war crimes. No, how about you start with the captain on the boat, following bad orders? But, my Constitution, America, I'm standing up for my freedoms. No, you're not. you just executed 2 men in the water, or however many men were in the water. You don't even know their names. You don't know what crime they did. There was no court. You just killed them. Oh, but, and what 1,500 kilometers away from the States? You know what I mean? Like, they weren't coming looking for you. Yeah, I killed a bunch of terrorists while my ship is over in your waters. Yeah, that's an act of war. Right? So we'll have to watch out what happens in Venezuela. But I think you're going to see so much unrest with that. And of course, probably somewhere in the middle of the winter, we're going to see another, U.S. attack on Iran. They'll find justification. They always do. It's like, so while they're looking for, again, a longer term, because you have to understand, like, they attacked Venezuela too fast already. People don't want it. It takes a couple of, like Saddam, it took a couple of years to be able to get the people on side to be able to take out Iraq, right? It took a couple of years of calling him a dictator and stuff like that, and all that. Same with Gaddafi. So like they had the reputation there where they were able to, oh well, we have to go to war with Saddam because of incubator babies, and oh well, Saddam threatened to use anything other than the petrodollar. So 4 days later, once he threatened to use the euro instead of the petrodollar, and 4 days later, Iraq gets invaded. Right? Again, you had Operation Iraqi Liberation, anagram oil. You had U.S. Generals out there saying, "Well, we can't allow Saddam to control the oil in his country, in the region, and affect world prices. We can't let him do it. But it's his country, his oil. You know what I mean? And that's the way Trump is thinking about Canada. Well, it's not fair that Canada, and again, this is what Trump has said. It's not fair that Canada controls its own waterways and stuff like that. It's not fair that they can control all this fresh water and all these minerals and all that. You know what I mean? So that's very scary language. And then you see the deterioration. Again, it happens slowly at first. So if you see NORAD go down, Canada needs to start building up militarily. Think like Finland, getting ready for think like Moldova. Think like these former Eastern Bloc countries that are like, okay, well, we don't want to be Ukraine, right? Well, Canada got to start doing that. So we might have to buy a whole bunch of stopgap things like tanks and whatever, or start building so much anti-tank weaponry and getting so much air defense weaponry that it would just make it hell for the United States to even consider trying to do an invasion on us. But this is the trajectory we're on. Now, how's the war going to play out? Now, I know every American's not going to believe this at all because, Canada, they're nothing burger, blah, blah, blah. And this is not me tooting my own horn or trying to saber rattle or trying to be the tough guy. But as I war game it, I'm like, okay, well, what strategies would be used? Oh, okay. So at first, it's the same as what everybody thought that the Russians, okay, the Russians are going to invade and the war will be over in 3 days. Okay, and now we're 3 years on, right? Because the Ukrainians just didn't lie down. And yes, the Ukrainians are losing the war. That is clear as day. But I admire the Ukrainians' will to fight for sure. And it comes back to the art of war. No nation who has the will to fight can ever be truly beaten. Afghanistan, Iraq, Vietnam, list goes on and on and on. You cannot beat these people because they will not. You have to kill every single human being there. Iran will be another one. Iran, when the Iranians truly say, okay, it's game on, they will destroy every U.S. vessel and every base, NATO base in the region. And then they will wipe the Israelis off the map. It's going to be a weird day when people like, there's like no signals coming out of Israel at all. It's literally going to be smoldering rubble. They'll send drones over. It's just going to be like everybody's going to be killed. The Arabs are going to completely destroy the Israelis. But you reap what you sow. It's going to be a weird day when you see the Bay of Pigs 2.0 happen in Venezuela, where a whole bunch of U.S. soldiers are slaughtered on the beaches of Venezuela as a whole carrier group just goes missing. And, they'll be like, okay, missiles were detected, launched, and then suddenly the aircraft carrier disappeared off the radar. You know what I mean? And no more communications. And maybe there's like some men floating in the water in life raft or whatever. But then you're going to see Venezuelan gunboats go out there and finish those guys off. Why? Because, well, they might be drug dealers. They might be drug runners. Yeah, I know we sunk their vessel, but, we'll go back and finish them off. Oh, but that's going to be war crimes. Well, let's talk about war crimes. You killed 2 of our men. We killed 6,500 of yours. Like, that's what it's going to be. You say, no, the Venezuelans would never be able to fight back. They're a nothing burger. This whole, we're the superpower, we're so powerful that we can't be beaten has been disproven so many times, right? But the thing is that the warfare has changed. Venezuela has a handful of fighter jets, sure. They're probably the same with the Iranians. The Iranians don't send fighter jets up to intercept stuff. They use it to track things. So you got Su-30s, okay? They'll use that to track the F-35s from 100 miles away. You know what I mean? So you'll be outside their range. They're going to stay outside your range. But where are they going to take? What are they tracking it for? So that the air defense systems can shoot them down. This is what the Iranians do. They triangulate. Just hit it with the radar here, here, here. This is how SAM sites work. You don't use just one. You ping off each other. This has been kind of SAM site 101. Whereas you track, you coordinate in the sky, you fire the missile, and then as it hones in, you just guide the missile to where you want it to be. And then once it gets within range, I think once you're within, say, like 5 kilometers, 10 kilometers of a stealth aircraft, it's game over for that aircraft. Like there's nothing it can do. At that point, it'll be locked on. It's big enough on radar that at that point, especially like 5 kilometers out, most warheads are going to pick that up, no problem, especially if it's being guided to that area. And we're talking older SAM sites, not like, we're talking like 1980s SAM sites. We'll shoot down an F-35 without too much problem. It'll hone in on the heat signature, or it's going to hone in on the radar, or the hole, or basically shoot the hole in the sky. That's what it's going to do. That's how they shot down the last stealth F-117, which is stealthier than the F-35. So this is the trajectory that Trump has the world on. And a lot of countries are saying, no, we don't want to do this, right? But, while every other country is in the everything problem, well, they want to escalate with Russia. So it's like, fuck. Again, all our world leaders, whether it's in Russia, whether it's in Moscow, Beijing, Ottawa, or Washington, or London, or, wherever, every one of our world leaders seems to be fucking critically insane to the point where they want this massive war for a great reset, just to depopulate, right? But yeah, but the good news is I think most people aren't falling for it. It's just, how will the brave law enforcement military react to the citizen? So when Donald Trump orders the people to open fire on its citizenry, the military to open fire on the citizenry, the same way, if you're going to shoot guys in the water, well, you have no honor. You know what I mean? Unarmed guys in the water, these guys can't do anything. You take them prisoner. I mean, even in World War II, look, when they sunk the Bismarck, there wasn't too many survivors from the Bismarck, but they picked them up. Even after the Bismarck sunk the hood with 1,403 souls lost on that ship, they still picked up those other guys. Why? Because you don't just shoot men in the water. You know what I mean? The Germans picked up their own. They picked up, British sailors as well. You know what I mean? Like that was what you did. Why? Because they weren't monsters. They were just at war. You know what I mean? So, what does that say about, but then again, after World War II, particularly after World War I, the invention of total war came in. And from pretty much Vietnam on, you've seen this total war where you bomb, you napalm villages or whatever because there might be a terrorist in there, right? Like Israel uses the total war doctrine against the Palestinians, right? Like just, okay, we killed 100,000 of them, but they're all terrorists. Are you sure about that? How many trials did you have? None. Just, U.S. democracy JDAMs falling off of Israeli airplanes because the Israeli intelligence are so good that all 100,000 people that we killed were every one of them terrorists. All those little kids, all those, you know what I mean? And this is what you're trying to sell to the public, and if they could yell at you, oh, you're a racist, bigot, anti-Semite, but you're the one killing everybody, So yeah, don't be fooled. This is not good news. The escalation is not good between Canada and the United States. It's very light now. People don't see the humble beginnings until they read it in a history book 50 years later, and then they'll find something like this. Oh, this guy fucking figured it out right away. Because it's easy to see once you start connecting the dots. But yes, the U.S. will lose this war to Canadians because we're going to be more unified here. And it's going to be the cross-border skirmishes, not by the military. The militaries, in fact, will probably turn to a point where they're going to try to protect each country from the civilian populations, right? So you have to think of the atrocities that are going to occur there. Americans will be killing each other left, right, and center. They're going to lose a few million just in the Civil War angle, the left versus right, the Antifa, whatever, the martial law, right? So they're going to lose, and then all the starvation, and that's going to fall after that. Most of the Americans are going to be killed by other Americans, not Canadians, but Canadians will be killing a lot of Americans in retaliation to attacking our country. But we're going to probably be fighting more defensively. So we're going to lose probably all but 4 to 8 million people here. but you're going to lose probably about 150 million people there just out of the chaos of starvation, plague, disease, all that stuff. And again, just the martial law, just the, people shot for not, for being part of this group, part of that group. That's what you're about to see in the States, which would be the benefit to China because then they can come in and buy everything up, in the aftermath, right? But I think China will collapse before that. And then right after we're done the war with the United States for the next 30 years, we go into a war against China. We'll win again, but China has to attack Taiwan first, get completely humiliatedly losing Taiwan. But everybody's going to learn a lot. Like warfare has changed in the Ukraine. Warfare is going to change again when China attacks Taiwan. The Taiwanese are going to do shit we couldn't even imagine of. And it's going to be clever as shit. And that is going to make the the battlefield go from cruise missiles to drones to the equivalent of cloth wing biplanes running on magnetos flying around, because nothing electronic is going to work after the Chinese Taiwan war, because the main emphasis will blind the satellites, shoot them down, whatever, blind them, burn them out with lasers, whatever you got to do. The technology exists, making them obsolete. Then it's blind every radar. Once the radar jamming supersedes any sort of, it won't matter if it's F-35, whatever, nothing is going to be able to get a data link. Meaning, you roll tanks the way you did in World War II. You come around the corner, whoever blasts first gets to live. Your F-16s will have, basically flying around with radar jammers and completely blind. And it's going to be dogfight mano a mano. It'll be rockets and cannons. That's it. Very similar to like the early, just because nothing's going to function with all this grid down kind of technology, which will put many people back in the Stone Age, which is going to starve a lot of people. So that's how it's going to play out. It's going to take decades, but that's how it's going to play out. But where does it start? So I don't know. Canada could be invaded, I think, before the Chinese invade Taiwan. The Chinese are smart enough to know that Taiwan is theirs war to lose. They could win, say, about a year and a half, but at what cost? It doesn't matter about the air superiority. Look, we're finding out already in the Ukraine that $200 drones take out $4 million tanks and $40 million tanks. Tanks might be obsolete. Aircraft, because of air defense systems, might become obsolete. You know what I mean? So you're back to World War II style fighting again, but in a different way. So that's where we're at. It's pretty gloom and doom. I got stuff I got to get done, so I'm going to wrap it up. I know people don't like me talking about it, and it infuriates one side over the air, but you got to think about how these things are going to play out. And this is what the rhetoric was all about. It's to really destroy the relationships between Canada and the United States. It's not about making America great again. It's about conquest. It's clearly about conquest at this stage of the game. Listen to the language. Watch what they're doing. When they're making policies that make war more likely, even if it's very distant at this point, like the earliest this can happen is probably 4 or 5 years from now. Trump has to do a lot of propagandizing to the American people to sell them on a Canadian-U.S. war. Saying, okay, we have to go to war with Canada because there's terrorists up there. This is the language putting up right now. Canada is basically an untrustworthy nation, blah, blah, blah. We're hard to negotiate, but this new thing, we have to make them get visas because they're an untrustworthy nation. They're trying to interfere with our elections with commercials. And, again, this is what's out there. You got to look at it for what it is. Got to look at it for what it is. So prepare wisely. We are in the Black Christmas time zone. I don't know how bad it's going to be for the American people with the food shortages and the inflation, but my guess is it's probably going to be pretty bad. Watch for layoffs in the auto sector, big time in the American. Well, it's going to be both sides of the border. One will blame the other side. I get it, but it's like, okay, you have to understand who fired the first shot. Trump, right? With the trade war. The USMCA Kuzma thing, Trump wants to throw it out because he's not getting his way. because he's figured out, okay, well, Carney's just going to kick this can down the road because there's no point in negotiating it now. So all the conservatives that are out there, why can't Carney make a deal with the Americans? Everybody else is getting a deal. Yeah, but they're not really good deals. Look, I was going to tariff you 35%. Now I'm only going to tariff you 20%. Oh, what a deal. That's not a deal, right? Carney knows all he has to do is keep the ball in Trump's court. That's all he has to do, right? And the best way to do that is just not do anything. Like block, attack, retreat. Well, the block is this. I'm not going to negotiate bad deals with the CUSMA, USMCA, because that'll, when we negotiate it next year, will be, that stuff will get added in there, and that's going to hurt Canada, which will hurt his portfolios and his donors, which he's not going to do. He doesn't care about us, but he cares about them, right? So what he's saying is, I'll just wait till next year when we renegotiate. And Trump's saying, well, fuck it, I'll get rid of it altogether, which then puts trade completely up in the air, which will be completely chaotic, which this could happen by Christmas if Trump decides to pull that trigger, which will have devastating, because that means everything goes in limbo between trade. And that will cut trade on both sides of the border drastically. And this will start to explain to people why Carney's doing all these, trying to get all these deals, because he's racing against that. That's the impossible task he has. And Trump is looking at it as that'll be a Trump card, but he has to make, the problem with the Trump card is he has to make Americans suffer even more at a time when people have suffered enough, right? So you're about, to make a whole bunch of layoffs in the United States through the disaster getting rid of CUSMA, saying, okay, no, well, we'll come up with a new agreement and then get rid of it. No, we're just going to stop it. You stop that, you stop the trade, right? Once you stop that trade, that's going to be, like what's in that trade. There's a lot in that trade. That could be critical resources. Trump could be doing something that say, okay, and Trump would blame us. Like he would cut it off and then say, okay, well, in that trade was gas, oil, blah, blah, blah. Okay, that the way he's looking at it, well, I'll just blame them for not negotiating. It'll cut off the gas and oil and, basically in December, and possibly electricity to Americans, which means people will probably freeze to death. And then you'll say, well, it's Canada's fault because they didn't negotiate properly. Now, if Carney caves in, well, then Trump wins. And look at that. We fucked you, right? And there'd be nothing we could do about it. But if Carney says, well, no, Trump, he could turn on CUSMA anytime he wants. We'll renegotiate it next year, or we can start negotiating it now. But we want, you now have basically hostile acts from the Trump administration in writing against Canada. So this is where we're going, guys. And I don't know, I'm not trying to divide Americans with Canadians. No, the only way we get out of this is we make sure our leaders, look, our world leaders love getting us killed, fighting each other. They love doing that. I have no hostility to the Americans, but I love my country and I have to defend it. So any American that's going to follow their constitution of bravely attacking my country, yes, I have to kill them. This is the hypothetical. If you are going to invade my country, I don't care if you're American, I don't care if you're Chinese, I don't care if you're Russian, I don't care who you are. If you're coming in my country with tanks, I have to stop you. You know what I mean? Like that's because you're going to kill my people, right? I don't want to see it get to that, but the shoe would be, I would understand, I would expect the same of the Americans saying, hey, well, if Canadians are going to preemptively strike us and roll their tanks, calling us terrorists and come into our country and start to kill our people, I'm going to stop those fucking Canadians. I understand that. So do our leaders, right? It's like, oh no, we'll just get them to kill each other. Because like Henry Kissinger said, if they're fighting each other, not fighting us. But if Carney holds his ground, so look, we're going to take the hits here because of the Trump, and it's going to be devastating to us. But that will seal the deal for any deal basically Carney wants to make abroad. The Americans the Americans are already being cut out of talks. Spain is not saying, okay, well, we're going to make a deal with Canada with the U.S.'s approval. That's not happening right now. That's not happening anymore. People are doing this. The BRICS are doing this, sure. The BRICS, take them with a grain of salt. Yeah, it's the infant stage of the BRICS, so it looks like they're winning, but it's really, the other side of the aisle of mob bosses, right? So the new supply chain is not with the Americans at the head. They have lost the hegemony. They don't have the power, even if they still have the reserve currency for now. It's dying big time because all the new, like the Nordic Alliance has very little to do with the United States. They're in on some of the Arctic shipbuilding, sure, but they're not in charge of it. It's like, no, the deals are being grafted between Finland and Canada and Denmark, the Kingdom of Denmark and Greenland and Iceland, and Sweden and Norway, and whatever, UK. The Americans are like, okay, well, we might get an icebreaker or something out of it. Yes, some of the icebreakers are being built in Texas by Canadian companies. So Trump does that. Well, okay, then the American icebreakers are not going to get built if he gets rid of the Canadian companies. The same way if he gets rid of the Texas Canadian refinery. Now, Trump could say, well, national security, we're seizing this refinery from the Canadians in Texas, okay, well then you're not getting any crude. You know what I mean? So like we don't know how messy this is going to get, but we know that this is the next game to be played by the Trump administration. How crazy will they get? Because again, Trump never takes responsibility. Same way Joe Biden, none of them ever take responsibility. Carney doesn't take responsibility. Nobody takes responsibility, right? But the people will pay, and they will pay very painfully. So again, like I said earlier in the video, government, these laws, hurt the people, and when they're fighting with that, So Carney right now has a lot of upper hand if he stays the course. It's the pain will be diverted. Like the difference is which leader can convince their population the other guy's worse. Can Carney, if Trump does this, Carney has the media on his side. Trump does not, right? He has he has some media on his side, but it's in the alternative media. It's not on the mainstream. He has some in the mainstream, but very little. But if he does this, okay, and triggers the death of Kuzma or the USMCA, that overnight just brings trade to an absolute screaming halt, he has to convince the American people that this is Canada's fault. Carney has to convince us Canadians, that it's Trump's fault. The problem is Trump has got a trigger. So therefore, it's going to be a tougher sell for him than it will be for Carney. So once again, the Trump card, like Trump keeps saying that, Americans are going to have to take a little bit of a hit. They're not going to like it, but it'll be better in the end. I don't think it will be because of the way, like Trump is not trying to make America great again. He's not trying to invest in business because he's a capitalist, right? So it's like, I will destroy this industry and a capitalist will come in and free market capitalists will come in and fix it. But no, that's not how it works. That's not the world we live in. Most of our offshore ventures have been paid for by the Canadian taxpayer, the American taxpayer paid to take its industries in its country and offshore it to China. And China has been making profit off of it. And then some of the venture capitalists have done this as well. And what Trump is completely banking on is venture capitalists coming in, buying up the industry, and then investing in it. But nobody likes instability in the economy, right? So what we're getting at is that Trump has to sell the American people that the reason why we cut off all that trade and your lights just went out and the gas and oil is off is because Canada didn't capitulate to us cutting off Kuzma. Which, would they do that? Like, the upper hand here is like, you're going to have Doug Ford out there. He'll know how to play this. He'll be like, I do not want to cut the hydro off, but the Americans have given us no choice. They have forced us to cut off the hydro because of the Kuzma. We can't legally turn on your hydro because we'll be, they'll be in violation of a law, right? We're sorry. We're so sorry. But, call your, it's going to be horrible for the American people. So just the question, is Trump really that crazy and the Trump administration to make you do this? My hunch says yes. Reality says, if logic is there, no. But that would be a very mask off. Like, we already have a mask off moments with Carney and Trump. The difference is Carney never put a mask on. What you see is what you really got. Yes, he lies. He does all these things that Trump does the same. But it's like you kind of get an idea of Carney like 5 minutes after you meet him. There's nothing really special. You kind of know where he's going to go, right? Good, bad, ugly, right? Whatever. But if Carney seems to be the one to gamble out of this, Trump is the impulsive one, not Carney. Carney seems to react accordingly the best he can, not because he's a better guy, but he's just a smarter chess player and understands that, okay, well, I can utilize the chaos to make deals over here outside the United States. And it's been working, yes and no, win losses. And that's the only question is, will we get more wins than losses? This instability is really, really crazy. So that is what the Black Christmas is predominantly going to be based upon. This is where we're at by spring. Who knows how bad the rhetoric will be between our countries. My hunch is that Americans will be split kind of like 70-30. 70% of Americans will still be like, no, Trump is fucking us. It's not the Canadians. 90% of Canadians are going to be like, no, Trump is the one fucking us. Even the Maple Magas are going to see it. They're going to be like, okay, no, the 51st state thing is a bad idea. It's a really bad idea. Number one, once you start really looking at the numbers, and again, the numbers we can get to see. Like, again, watch the automotive. I want to see how bad the vehicle thing is going to be. Like, my hunch is they all need bailouts at this point in the States. Because if not, they're all going under. But if they don't want anybody driving gasoline vehicles by the end of 2025, well, that gives them a little while, but maybe by 2026, Ford, Chrysler, GM, Dodge, they're all out of business. And now in comes all these, oh, well, we're in a pinch. Oh, well, look, China's ready to go with all these electric vehicles. That's the capitulation. That might be what they're doing. It wouldn't make sense. Again, I wouldn't be like Carney is making ties with China, which I don't like because, like I say, the liberals sell us out to the Chinese, the conservatives sell us out to the Americans, right? So this could be the Chinese hostile takeover of the automotive industry by just flooding everybody with electric vehicles. And if you can afford a vehicle, great. If you can't, fuck you. You're walking, right? And then that's again the world leaders. They don't care. They've already told us they were going to do this to us, right? It started with Starmer's, out there in the UK saying, yeah, we're going to get rid of combustion engines by 2025. He said this about 2-3 years ago. They do say the quiet parts out loud. Starmer is a complete utter maniac. The guy is a complete utter maniac. Trump is, he's crazy too. Carney's he's a calculated lizard. You know what I mean? Again, it's just mob bosses fighting. Either way, whether you don't like what I'm reporting on, my only duty is to tell you the truth, guys. That's it. Look at it for what it is. I'm not giving you the political spin. I'm saying this is where we're at. If you want just the cheerleaders, Trump is winning. He's doing this great deal here. He's sticking it to Canada. He's sticking it to the EU. If you want to go with those guys, go ahead. There's lots of those guys out there. Oh, Carney's the best guy ever. He's fighting the good fight. He's doing this. He's our guy, blah, blah, blah. If you want to go with those guys, those partisan channels are there. I'm not that. I'm telling you, both of these guys are going to get a lot of people killed. The question is just who's going to get less killed. Carney doesn't seem to care about killing us as much as making money for his donor class. That's it. Where I think he won't care one way or the other. Trump doesn't care about the small people at all. He cares about his donor class. That's it. So he cares about Israel. That's all he cares about. He doesn't care about anything else. His family, sure. His donors, family, and Israel. Anything else is just, okay, he'll pander to you. But, look, half to 2/3 of the MAGA people are no longer on the MAGA train. Why? Because they're intellectually honest. They're seeing what I'm seeing. They're not finding all these great wins. All they're seeing is job losses everywhere. The odd company that's going back to the States versus the ones that are leaving. I don't know what the ratio is. Is it 5-1, 10-1? But it's in favor of leaving the United States, not in favor of staying with the United States. Trade deals are moving around the United States, not through the United States the way they were. This is going to be chaotic. Listen to guys like Gerald Celente. He's not wrong. He's not wrong. Watch the .com thing. Yeah, they overinvested in all these these AI things. You know, these things. 92% of your GDP last year or in 2025 was from building data centers. Like you got like 11% manufacturing left in the United States. I'm sure we're much worse off here in Canada, which means Canada has to start like again, that's what Trump got elected to do, was increase manufacturing in the United States, starting with the domestic first. If you wanted to make policies little bits at a time, you know, go over each trade dispute, that's how you do it. But Trump wanted to just see if he could bully Canada into just, you know, folding on day one and just handing the keys over. He's miscalculated greatly. Canadians will never just go willingly. And it's going to be very chaotic. It's going to be extremely chaotic. Christmas on, if you're, I don't care if you're on the left, on the right, if you don't want to starve to death, make sure you have at least 2 years worth of food for everybody in your family, because the chaos, who knows how bad it's going to get from here. Maybe it won't get as bad as I say, but that's the trajectory we're on. I'm usually 85% of the time right. So anyway, there we go. We'll try that.